Howdy everybody, this is Omar, your audio amigo, here today with a quick showcase for y'all. This time we're going to be looking at a pair of DAC amps from DUNU. These two are the DTC480 and the DTC800, priced at $70 and $100 respectively. Both come armed with dual Cirrus Logic DAC chips. Are the Cybertruck and the sort of space coffin worth it in terms of DACs? Well, let's find out. Quick disclaimer, these two are on loan from a viewer for review. I'm not being paid for this review, and these do have to go back. So I've gone ahead and activated the paid promotion feature regardless. Y'all know I like to do these disclaimers because I believe in full transparency, especially when there's potential bias besides my own personal taste at play. Thank you so much to the kind viewer for sending me these out, and thank you to you all for your continued support. So the unboxing experience and packaging for both of these is near identical. The boxes and the included accessories are the same. The main difference, it's actually just the color of the boxes. You get blue for the 480 and gray for the 800. Both boxes contain the DACs themselves, the same USB-C sort of on-the-go cable for each one. You also get a USB A to C adapter, as you can see here, and that's it. I honestly don't mind slim accessories packages on DACs amps. If you remember from my Celeste CD2 video, I said, as long as everything I have to use these comes in the boxes, I'm perfectly happy. That's the case here, except for a user manual, which I really wish was included, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So the included cables here are quite nice. They're cloth braided. The strain relief is very well designed. I didn't have any issues during my testing. I would expect these cables to last a very long time. They feel really nice in the hands, like the aluminum housings on the connectors. They are the extruded connectors rather than the stamped connectors, which I like to see. And yeah, these are perfectly appropriate for these for dongle DAC use. I had no issues with the cables. They're very well designed. Looking at the build quality on these, they're both CNC machined full aluminum bodies, just in different shapes. The 480 has this sort of angular Cybertruck-ish look to it. The USB-C and audio connectors are on opposite sides, Type-C there, 4.4 and 3.5 there. On one side, you have an indicator light, which tells you your bit rate or what mode the DAC is in. And on the other side, you have volume up and down, clearly marked. I like the fact that they're separate buttons versus a rocker. It just seems a bit more durable to me than a rocker would. The 800 is very similar in construction, also full CNC machined aluminum. Same USB-C on one side, same 3.5 and 4.4 on the other. Same volume up and down buttons. Indicator light has been moved to the top, and it looks more like a Star Trek torpedo, coffin than anything else. Overall, these two feel very similar to each other in terms of build quality. Makes sense. Same company, just one step up in the line. Very, very solidly built. Again, I like that there's individual buttons rather than a rocker. I think these should last a nice, good long time and should be resistant to drops, bumps, scratches, all that good stuff. So let's get into the specifications for these. Both of them use dual Cirrus Logic 43198 DAC chips and are capable of decoding up to 32-bit 786 kHz FLAC files, as well as decoding DSD 256 files natively. In my testing, neither of these DACs support inline controls or inline microphones, which honestly I'm not surprised by. There are very few DACs with this sort of setup that support those features. On the power front, the 800 has a bit of an edge over its sister as it features dual SGM 8262 op amps. The 480, since it is a full balanced architecture, does have two amp chips of its own. I don't know what brand they are. I couldn't find that information anywhere. But since both of them are actually full balanced architectures, I know that there are two amps in there somewhere. They are full balanced. I had no issues powering any of the headphones or IEMs in my collection, including the extremely power-hungry SJY Moonlights that you've seen on the display here. I put these on my measurement microphone, turned the volume up, and both of them clipped my measurement microphones with the SJY Moonlight. So there should be no issues powering basically any headphones except for some extreme edge cases here. And that was on low gain. So I'm assuming on high gain, you could probably cause some pretty serious hearing damage with these. As far as my battery drain test went, I volume matched the SJY Moonlight with a balanced cable at minus 30 dB on my measurement microphone. And I went ahead and let them play music on my fully charged phone for an hour. The DTC480 drained 24% of the battery, leaving 76%, and it had an external temperature of 99.6 degrees Fahrenheit, as you can see from my thermal imaging picture. This is just a few degrees above skin temperature. I found the 480 perfectly safe to use, perfectly easy to handle, no issues whatsoever. The DTC800 drained a little bit more of the battery. I ended up with 28% drain, which is 72% battery remaining. And it achieved that at an external temperature of 105 degrees, which is a little bit hotter. I did find it sort of hot to the touch. It wasn't dangerous. It wasn't to a point where I think it would cause burns. It was just noticeably hotter than the DTC480 at the same performance, same volume. In terms of weight, the 800 is a little bit heavier. It weighs about 1/3 of a gram more than its sister, which honestly isn't a ton of difference considering how different they are in terms of overall size. Yeah, specifications pretty common for a pair of DACs, dual Cirrus Logic ones. Nothing stands out too well in a good way or in a bad way. So user experience on these two is basically identical in terms of controls. The only controls that you have on the unit are the volume keys, and you will interact with those to change a lot of the settings as you do with basically all other DACs of this sort of design. You can press those buttons in different ways: long press, short press, combined press, to achieve lots of different things. I won't get into too much of them here, but on the 800 you can enable a high gain mode. On the 480 you have high gain mode, and you also have 5 different DAC filters that you can switch between and play around with. I didn't test those too much. I did swap between them, but I just left it in the standard fast roll-off low latency mode as it was the default one. Those button combinations to switch modes, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, do not come instructed on the packaging here. There's no manual, there's no startup card, there's no nothing. You have to go online to figure out the button combos for these. It's easy to find those button combos on store pages and on DUNU's websites. There's no real harm done here. It's just a little bit annoying that you open the box, there's no manual, no card, no nothing, and you technically have that high gain mode and all those filter modes on here that you don't know you can access because there's no manual in the box. Outside of the button combos that you need to learn, the user experience, like I said, is extremely straightforward. You plug it into your phone, you set the preamp using your phone's volume, and then you adjust fine volume using the buttons on the DAC itself. The buttons, as I said earlier, are very nice feeling. They're very tactile. They have a satisfying click to them. I expect them to last a good long time. I think it's very well designed. I prefer it to a rocker, as I mentioned earlier. I don't like it as much as a wheel. Volume wheels are rare on things like this, but I do prefer a wheel, even if they seem to be a little bit less durable. User experience on these is a no-brainer. Anyone should be able to get the most out of these easily. So in terms of sound, I'm not the best person to review this sort of thing. My daily driver sort of dongle DAC is an awful snowy night. It has the exact same implementation and chips as the 480 with the same dual unknown amp chips. But honestly, I couldn't really tell the difference between these two and the snowy night in terms of sound. I did do some A/B testing. I will say the 800 hit the clipping point on my microphone in terms of volume with less button presses compared to the other two, so it's clearly packing more juice. But in terms of audio quality, all three using the same DAC chip, I personally, with my tracks and my equipment, I didn't really see much of a difference between them. All three sounded extremely clean. They were all very clear. The DAC didn't get in the way of my headphones and my audio files in a way that I noticed to be negative. I have seen some reports of the 800 having noise and dropout issues and some people having problems with it. In all honesty, my time with the 800 was completely faultless. I didn't have any issues here. I tried different phones, different devices. I didn't have any issues with it. I just wanted to mention that here, since there are a few reports online of issues with the 800 specifically, I personally didn't encounter any of them. So I already talked a little bit about the only competition that I have for these, but let's go ahead and bring in the awful snowy night for just a little bit of a quick look. Honestly, the snowy night only beats the other two in terms of looks, and everything else, it's basically kind of a wash. It's roughly the same size, as you can see, as the 800, even if the awful is a little bit taller. It is also the heaviest of the group, but I think that's more to do with the much chunkier cable on it. I will say the strain relief is not as nice, or non-existent, I will say, compared to the DUNU, so that's something. In terms of output power, this also clips my microphones with the SJY Moonlight, so easily more than enough for anything. If I go by manufacturer specifications, this one sits between these two. It's got about double the output power of the 480 and about 100 milliwatts less power than the 800. Honestly, way more power than I personally would need. If I had to choose one of these to be my daily driver and I didn't already have the snowy night, I honestly would probably pick the 480 here. The price-performance ratio is pretty good. It's also the smallest and lightest unit here. The lower power output didn't matter too much to me. It still clipped the SJY Moonlights, as did the Snowy Night. So I would take the savings here, the satisfying buttons, and the, for me, more than adequate output power here. The reported issues with the 800, as well as the higher price and sort of size, would stop me from considering this one, but I still think it's a solid option if you want this level of output power. But at this sort of price range, I think there are a lot of options that provide sort of desktop amp level power, and I'd maybe look into one of those rather than either of these two. I spoiled the conclusion a bit, but that leads me to my recommendation. The 800 here is going to get a ranking of good due to the aforementioned reported issues with noise and dropping out. It also has what I feel is a lack of standout features at the $100 class. Some of its competition has more gain modes, low, medium, and high. They have more filters. They have PEQ functionality. They have desktop class power. Some of them even have screens on them. And I feel like some of that would have been nice to justify the increased price of this. The DTC480, on the other hand, is going to get a rating of "this is brilliant." I think it's built extremely solid. It has more than enough output power for like 95-99% of headphones and essentially all IEMs. It's very small, very compact, very well built. It doesn't get hot. I think it looks rather sleek. And I think it's definitely something to consider if you're looking for a dongle DAC in the sort of $60-$75 price range. But that's going to do it for this rather quick video. Sorry I didn't have too much to say, but DAC and amps aren't really my specialty here. As long as they don't get in the way, ruin, or cause a bunch of noise to my listening experience, I'm probably going to consider them to be okay. For me, it's more about features, industrial design, and durability rather than, how they change sound. Thank you so much to the viewer who lent me these. I really appreciate it. They're heading back to you as soon as possible. But for now, that's going to be it. I really appreciate all your continued support. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Omar with AudioAmigoReviews, and I will catch y'all next time.